Comparison price for Friday, June 6, 2025, coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the Historic Wall Center, and this program a presentation of Bet365. Matt Sakaris alongside Blake Price, four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson, hitting switches, conducting things. Big show planned for you as you head off onto a sunny weekend here. Boy, looks gorgeous in the city of Vancouver, with plenty of happenings, of course, at BC Place. Very busy. The BC Lions season and home opener Saturday against the Edmonton Elks. The Whitecaps versus Seattle Sunday, we think.
Probably.
More on that later in the program. And, of course, the NBA Finals, Stanley Cup Finals, all engaged here. How are you?
Good.
He's off to Tirana.
Yes.
Tirana.
Yes.
No O's.
Looking forward to the match tomorrow.
When you're there, you cannot pronounce the O's.
Tirana.
Yes. Canadian Shield as well. Canada versus Ukraine tomorrow.
And maybe, just maybe, for the first time in 5 years, you might see me on SportsCenter. Maybe.
Oh, really? How about this? Breaking news. Has it been 5 years?
Yep. Almost.
Is it like riding a bike?
We'll find out.
Well, we wouldn't want to fall off.
Last time was just before the world shut down.
Yeah.
Like
Do you know who your SportsCenter partner is?
No, I don't actually.
Oh, okay.
Oh. Yeah. Going to be interesting.
And, of course, busy at TSN because of a full weekend slate of the Canadian Football League, which began last night.
Exactly.
We're going to the Vancouver Canucks for our Bogey Juice poll question. Is the Canucks dressing room drama a thing of the past? You can vote yes, you can vote no. Do so at the Sakaris Price X and YouTube channels. Here's where all this is coming from. As we have noted several times this week, both Elias Pettersson and Thatcher Demko are missing from the marketing material, or at least the chief poster, that the Vancouver Canucks have put out to encourage season ticket memberships. And so we've been asking, are they not marketable anymore? Or were they intentionally left off because of the possibility of a trade? Now, we talked to Patrick Johnston yesterday, who mentioned to us that he still thinks that this management group is pursuing a team makeover, or at least is open to that possibility. Wrote a story about it yesterday, and how about this? I'll read from the piece. One league source said that trading Demko made sense to them since he is a solid trade chip, even if he is coming off multiple seasons in a row with injuries, and could help bring back the kind of number 2 center the Canucks openly covet. Another source said management is looking to, quote, get rid of the emotionally soft diva drama type cancerous players without doing a traditional rebuild.
That was a quote, by the way.
That is some quote.
That was a quote.
From an anonymous NHL source.
That wasn't PJ emptying the thesaurus.
Yeah.
That was a quote.
Right.
Diva type cancer. Like, those are all the bad words.
Oh, boy. Emotionally soft. Ooh.
Yeah. Oof.
And as Patrick told us yesterday, he thinks they're looking around on Thatcher Demko too, which I got to say surprises me. Like, I thought the plan was be great in goal with Demko and Lankinen and try and win via goal prevention with this stout defense core blue line that, if it stays intact, looks pretty darn good.
PJ has also been chief amongst, and I think you've echoed the sentence as well, hope is not a plan.
Yes.
It's not. Wanting Thatcher Demko to be healthy and, quote unquote, hoping that Elias Pettersson returns to his former self, while you can use the word hope, you can also use the word banking on, because both of them have proven that in the past they can do exactly what you're wanting them to do. So I have put my foot forward already and said, your best bet to be good this year is to bank on a Pettersson resurgence, is to bank on a reasonably healthy season and renaissance year for Thatcher Demko. So, yeah, I think any thought to jettison both of them, especially, never mind just one, but both, it's a huge gamble. It's a huge gamble.
Yeah. So I can. There's a lot of things about Thatcher Demko behind the scenes that a lot of fans I don't think would completely know or understand. So look, he's been injury plagued. That much we know.
Mm-hmm.
Thatcher has also taken a very firm hand in terms of his own personal rehabilitation. So much so that you may recall there were several times last year where Thatcher met the media to outline what was wrong with him and made mention of the fact that he wanted everybody to hear it from him. Now, many of us perceive that as the players, or at least this player, being a little reticent to have Rick Tocchet detail the injury because of what Rick Tocchet had said about Elias Pettersson's injury, very dismissive of knee tendinitis. Now, Thatcher was very upset that it got out that it was his popliteus muscle for reasons that are still somewhat obscure, or at least I don't particularly understand why he got so upset about that.
Not exactly an injury that can be targeted.
He came out and he detailed like everything that was wrong without actually naming the muscle.
Yeah, why would it matter?
So I didn't really understand that. So that was off-putting to him. And look, towards the end of the year, we talked about it. And in a season that was going nowhere, I didn't really blame him. But it was quite clear at the end of the year that Thatcher Demko just wasn't going to go out there and play when a team was not competitive for a playoff spot.
Yeah.
That he was done bleeding last year, that it was all about shutting it down and getting ready for the subsequent year. Now, I see some wisdom to that. Others might be off-put by that, right? So that Demko and Pettersson are both named in this story as Patrick looks forward to what the Canucks might do this month or this summer. Doesn't really surprise me from that standpoint. It does surprise me from how do you plan to win next year if you're moving Demko? Because at that point, you're on the market for a goaltender, right? Like, you're not just trusting Artur Shilovs to be your number 2 and Nikita Tolopilo or someone else to be your number 3, right?
No, probably not. I don't know that you're looking for necessarily a replacement Thatcher Demko, though. You're just looking for a more suitable NHL backup at that point, probably. So,
but is that good enough, Blake?
I mean, it's not. It's a hope. I would say when we say hope is not a plan, I would say that's a bigger hope than wanting Demko to be healthy. Like, Demko has been healthy. He's earned a
So that's not a whole. So, but that's the thing. That's a plan. Like, okay, Thatcher Demko is injury prone. That's why we have Kevin Lankinen locked up.
Mm-hmm.
Good plan. You go forward with Demko and Lankinen. That's very solid goaltending.
Yeah.
If one of them gets hurt, and you have to play Shilovs. Okay, that you're sweating that a little bit.
Is playing Elias,
but at least Shilovs has played NHL games in the last 3 seasons.
Which is a bigger hope, keeping Elias Pettersson and looking forward to a renaissance season, or trading him and assuming that whoever you get back is better than Elias Pettersson.
Well, this is why I voted yes on the poll question. I would like to think and sure hope for their sake that the dressing room drama is a thing of the past, but Elias seems to attract it. And I'm not sure Elias is done being difficult. I'm not sure Elias is done being uncoachable. And as Adam Foote detailed on Halford and Bruff today, Elias has been in town recently, last week. The new Canucks head coach mentioning that himself, Quinn Hughes, Thatcher Demko, Elias Pettersson played golf, had dinner, tried to. Foote is characterizing it as cleaning the slate, right, moving forward. But as we talked about when Foote was hired, there has not been a clean break here from everything that sunk the good ship Canuck last season.
Well, JT Miller had a large
is JT Miller enough is the question.
Well, JT Miller had a large section of the room, and those people are still there.
That's it. You have JT Miller disciples, acolytes, friends, allies, whatever term you want to use, who are still there. We'll see what takes place this summer. But the notion that is removing JT enough and that everyone now can carry forward with a fresh start from last year, I don't know.
I mean,
and I say that because it has been perfectly crystal clear that the Canucks coaching staff, specifically Rick Tocchet, we'll see about Foote. Foote said some very good things about Elias in his opening remarks. But Patrick Allvin, for sure, are still not 100% sold on Elias Pettersson and other Canucks players rising to the level of professionalism, preparation, habits that are accustomed to winning organizations. So I would like to think yes, but until I see it, I'm voting no. And then, of course, the other thing, Blake, is, and I'm not sure if this would be dressing room drama or just drama, but the future of Quinn Hughes still hangs over the franchise.
Yeah. I'm going to say yes and just hope that maturity wins the day here. I mean, there was two guys that were probably not, I don't know about the equality of their immaturity, but I think both Elias Pettersson and JT Miller were some of what happened. And yet I think that what happened in the aftermath, the trade of JT Miller, is enough of an act that I think it catches the attention of everybody in that room. And I would hope that cooler heads prevail and that maturity wins the day.
I would hope, too. I would hope that the big there were some real lessons learned last year.
And so while there are JT Miller disciples in that room that remain, again, just logically even, what's in their brain? No, I'm going to continue to have this divide and hold this grudge because then maybe I can get him traded too and me, I'll win the day. Where's
not that? See, that would not be my worry. I think you're right there. I mean, come on, you've got to move on, as a pro, as an adult.
Yeah.
Maturity's a good word here. I think the worry would be if things start to go poorly. Where are those individuals at that point? What is their assessment?
Yeah, where do fingers get pointed?
And are they pinning the tail on number 40?
Yeah.
And especially if he's struggling again. And especially if he isn't in tip-top, one of the team leaders shape at the beginning of training camp.
Well, here's the good news: is it's almost good for the Canucks that they weren't a playoff team this year, and that they're not expecting to make us if they were a first round casualty and all this came in the aftermath of a first round casualty. Well, there's going to be a lot of expectation. Hey, we're going back to the playoffs, and this is where our standard is. You didn't make the playoffs this year, so if you struggle in the first 2 months of the season, guess what? That's where you were. You missed the playoffs last year too. So until they have proven themselves to be a winner and a playoff team, I don't know that there's any logical room to be frustrated beyond the usual amount with where their lot in life is at. Where there might get a little bit of risk. Let's say they get off to a splendid start, Matt. Let's say they have a great start through the first 6-7 weeks of the season. 10-5-2 out of the gate. And then there's adversity. They may have convinced themselves that after 10-5-2 or something that they were better than they actually were. And then the frustration.
Well, but that's something else Foote has to guard against. PJ notes this in his article, and we've been saying this for years. You had a group of young players go on a very good run in the bubble playoffs and came back and thought their shit didn't stink. They were the cat's meow around town. It's a Canadian market. You get a lot of accolades when you play well. There's a lot of people willing to slap you on the back and say, hey, great job, buy you a beer, buy this. As Patrick Alvin and Jim Rutherford and Rick Tocchet and people with Stanley Cup rings when they walked into this environment knew was, you guys haven't achieved anything. Like, how are we walking around with chests puffed out because we made a run in the bubble playoffs?
And that might have been some of the gasoline last year too, right? In the same vein. You know, we made it to the second round.
Which would also explain why Alvin was so firm in that post-game or postseason media availability. We haven't achieved anything yet. The work starts now. The tough part starts now. And yet that message fell on deaf ears in some cases.
Stanley Cup playoffs are very deceiving. You make it to the third round. It sounds great. There's two ways to look at it. You made it to the final four, and the Canucks didn't do this. I'm saying it's just such a razor's edge. Even when you win the second round series, as the Canucks were so close to doing versus the Oilers, you're down to the final four. That sounds great. You have still won half of the amount of games that you need to win the Stanley Cup.
And I think there's a pretty clear delineation in terms of fans can look at that and say successful season. In fact, fans gave them an ovation after they lost Game 7 to Edmonton. And it was appropriate. That was a terrific year.
After the depths of the organization of the previous 10, it was earned.
That was needed. Yeah. People had been waiting a long time for that.
And they showed a lot of fight.
They entertained us front to back.
Yeah.
They showed a ton of fight.
Yeah.
With a third-string goaltender, for heaven's sakes. It was admirable. They played their tails off. And they got duly rewarded, justly rewarded by fans saying, hey, really proud of you. Thank you for this season. And Blake and I have talked about this many times. In a 32-team league, it's not just one team that has a successful season. You make progress, and God knows that was progress last year for the Vancouver Canucks. You can deem that a successful season, even if you're not bringing Lord Stanley's mug home. From an organizational perspective, from guys like Rutherford, Alvin, coaches and whatnot, you have to hammer home the not even halfway there part, right?
Yep.
Because that's your ultimate goal, and that's the professional standard that you're looking to hold. That's the aim. That's the mission statement. So the bottom line is, if you're a Canucks player, listen far more to the guys in your organization than the fans slapping you on the back saying, oh, what a great year.
Yeah, and that's honestly, it's just a little bit of experience. Like, if you've been through the ringer before, if you've been through a playoff ringer before, you know how far away Game 7 of the second round is from being an actual Stanley Cup contender.
Yeah.
It's light years.
No, but if you're walking around town, I'm in the NHL and we made the playoffs and went around this year.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a finish line.
No.
That's a starting block.
A guy like Quinn Hughes knows that.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, and coming from a hockey family and having his dad, I think he knew that before he even played a playoff game, but not all do.
And guys like Ian Cole and others from last year's team would have known that as well. The other thing with regards to this summit, if you will, Foote, Hughes, Demko, and Elias, I like it from the standpoint, if we're to take Adam Foote strictly at his word, that this was basically a fresh start, move forward. Okay, here's the new brain trust captain, 2 other core players, a new head coach. Hey, love it from that standpoint, if that's all it is. But also think it's strategically wise if that's the Vancouver Canucks getting a final eyeball on Elias Pettersson and Thatcher Demko. Okay, we're a few weeks from the draft here in free agency, and we want to size you up one more time before we decide if we're going to go forward with you guys as centerpieces of this organization.
Size them up in what sense?
Well, size them up in terms of the off-season training, health, how it's all going.
Yeah, it's
Adam
very
Foote,
early for that.
Well, no, it's been a couple months, Blake. Maybe if they took a couple weeks off, it's been a month or 5 weeks. But especially with Elias, given that they wanted him to stay in town and work out under their auspices, I think that's important. And good on him for saving you the trip to Stockholm. So, yeah, if this is the head coach and the general manager going, okay, what have you been up to the last 5 weeks? How do you look? You look stronger?
I saw
Getting it from the horse's mouth. if you will. Getting the information so that if the offer comes around, you're in a position to make the call.
I think having the summit is still a good idea, though. I mean, the fact that they did
As I said, yes. It's good either way.
Yeah.
Whether you're planning on trading them or whether you're planning on keeping them. I think it was a constructive move.
You know what they should have shared is some bogey juice. Social.
Well, they were on the golf course. I'm going to imagine someone made a bogey.
Yeah, I'm sure they're good golfers, but there were some bogeys. Bogeyjuice.com. Use the code SP15. You get 15% off your order. Delicious ginger, apple, top shelf vodka concoction that will have you coming back for more because you're going to get another bogey. How many of you are putting up one bogey rounds? Or at the very least, you get yourself a spring summer cocktail and look at the weather. Nothing is more thirst quenching, tantalizing on a hot summer day. Soda, ice, bogey juice. You'll have a lot of fun. Use the code SP15. Don't forget the merch store at bogeyjuice.com. It's a lot of fun as well.
Let's get to our top story. It's brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. Rounding out the staff. Adam Foote, and he was doing that media availability yesterday towards the end of our program here, or towards the end of our first block. Adam Foote says Brett McLean, his new assistant, is going to run the power play, and that Scott Young, who is with the Canucks front office in player personnel, is going to have a second look at that, and both of them were offensively inclined players. Kevin Dean, the lead assistant, who was in some demand apparently amongst all these new coaching hires in the NHL, will run the penalty kill, and Adam Foote will have the secondary set of eyes on that. And of course, Foote was doing that last year to great success. Canucks surged to third in the league. Foote also mentioned that two former NHL head coaches, Joe Sacco, who spent this past year as the interim coach of the Boston Bruins, and David Quinn, who of course was the head coach of the New York Rangers at one point, were also assistant coaches that he was talking to. They are both now on the staff with Mike Sullivan on Broadway with the Rangers. That Dean Evison, the head coach of the Minnesota Wild, was influential in the hiring of Brett McLean. McLean had spent the past 8 seasons with the Minnesota Wild, head coach of the Iowa team, assistant coach on the NHL bench as well. And that they may have outmaneuvered Joel Quenneville and the Anaheim Ducks, who are also interested in Brett McLean.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting bench. It is very green. I don't mean Texas Stars green, but or Iowa Wild green. I mean, do they have the amount of success at the top level here to reach and to even, let's face it, in the NHL, you need a certain level of respect right out of the get-go. And it's not like it's active disrespect from the players to the coach, but it's a trust element, right? That these guys have been there, done that, both as players. Often it's why ex-players are abound, because there's that trust level there. But also as a head coach, like, can I trust you that what you're going to tell me is what I should actually be doing in that situation?
Well, you can't fool players, or at least not for long. And most of them have had multiple head coaches in the National Hockey League already. So they have a barometer. They have something to gauge you against. I should also mention David Quinn was a head coach in San Jose. I almost forgot about that. I'm sure he has or would like to as well. But there's no NHL head coaching experience on this bench. And that was, there's a saying in the NHL, talked to a number of executives over the years, that if you have a young or a first-time head coach, you should probably have an assistant with gray hair. A wily old vet who has been through the ringer, seen it all, and can help out your young or inexperienced head coach. So I do think that's an omission here. I'm a little nervous about this staff because of that lack of NHL head coaching experience. Cojoined with the fact that this isn't the most experienced coaching group to begin with. Adam Foote, 2.5 years as an NHL assistant, not quite 2 full seasons as a WHL head coach, and then minor hockey. Scott Young has been mostly in the front office on the personnel side of things. Yeah, he's coached youth hockey as well. And then McLean, I guess, being the McLean and Dean being the most seasoned of the lot in terms of actual bench experience and head coaching experience in the AHL, but not in the National Hockey League.
And head coaching in the AHL is fleeting as well. 2 years for one guy, 1 year for the other guy.
Well, a head coach in the AHL is as much about developing talent as it is about winning hockey games.
Right.
You know, they'll talk about it being a dual track, and all that is fine. Yeah, of course you want to win.
And late in the season of playoffs, it is about winning.
Well, sure. But the chief aim, the whole raison d'etre for these AHL franchises is to develop players for the National League club. This from Canucks News Summaries. If you want some positives about Brett McLean, the scoring results for the Wild during his 3 seasons running the forwards were very good. Kaprizov, Boldy, Hartman, Fiala, Eriksson Ek all broke out with excellent seasons with him as their coach. Awesome news. Here's the flip side. See, a Canucks fan pointed this out. McLean is head coach of the Iowa Wild this past year. They finished dead last in the AHL in both power play and penalty kill percentage. They were 13.8% on the power play. They were 73% on the penalty kill. Team as a whole finished 30th, 74 points in 72 games, minus 50 goal differential.
Yeah, I'm not worried about
grain of salt there because, again, development is or should be the number one pursuit. You'll see this with some minor league baseball teams too. They have terrific prospects. They have a horrible record. Why is that? Well, because the prospects are 19 and 20 and 2 and 3 years younger than everybody else in the league, and it was more about getting those guys going on their major league journey than it was about actually winning games.
Well, and also at the AHL level, you often see the journeyman on the PK, not as fleet of foot, and not necessarily as intelligent as some of the younger players that are coming up. At the NHL level, you use whoever's the best penalty killer, says your best penalty killer. So a little grain of salt. And also, I think they've got knowledge, empirical evidence of last year on a good PK of what they can build off of. So I think if whatever they draw up at training camp isn't working in the early goings of the season, I think that Adam Foote, and that's where the one hangover coach is a nice attribute here. They can always go back to what a similar attack as to what they had last year on PK.
Well, and the other thing we should note, that Iowa Wild team, amongst its top scorers were ex-Canucks Travis Boyd and Brendan Gaunce at 30.
Yeah.
Their other top scorers were ages 20, 23, 25, 20, 21. So, and then even from there, you got a lot of 23, 21. So they would have been relying on younger players than many of their peers.
With all coaches, this is true, but especially at the AHL level, it really matters what your group looks like.
Then there's the flip side, and I'm open-minded. I allow for this possibility as well. Noah Strang, ex of the Daily Hive, now pointed it out. For those that are sick of teams rotating through the usual suspects again and again, it's a welcome sight.
Yep.
New blood, fresh blood.
Not exactly household names here.
And particularly if they skew a little bit younger, or at least understanding the younger athlete, today's athlete, a little better than the retreaded NHL coach has been in the game 20, 25 years and wonders why you can't yell at him anymore, or to the same degree you used to. Leave open that possibility as well. Spencer Carberry, Mitch Love in Washington, sensational work, right?
Yeah,
younger coaches who didn't have a ton of NHL experience got on an NHL bench and worked magic with the Washington Capitals.
Or something that has been talked a lot about in the Stanley Cup final. Knobloch is now in his second straight Stanley Cup final as well. Yes, he's got decent products to work with, but
Yeah, sure
a
does.
lot of those players were in place for the previous handful of Edmonton head coaches that couldn't get it done. And here he is in a second straight Stanley Cup final. And Knobloch was not a household name.
No. The other thing that Foote mentioned on Halford and Bruff was that he doesn't like set plays on the power play. He prefers shots from the top, which I think means top of the circles and the point. How does that strike you?
Well, set plays is a weird, if that's the wording that he used, I mean, very little in hockey is a set play. It's generally a fluid situation.
I mean,
you have tendencies you want to favor, but there is a lot of talk of somewhat returning, not returning full time, but they went so far away from point shots on the power plays. And there's been a couple of teams, most notably Edmonton with Evan Bouchard, that have had some success with point shots recently. That there's the thought that maybe you don't abandon it 100%.
Yeah, but Hughes at the top is a different shot than Evan Bouchard.
And maybe it's not at Hughes at the top. Maybe Hughes is at the half wall conducting business.
Oh, okay.
Now you lose the walking the line that we have come to love.
So love him walking the line. Johnny Cash walked the line.
But who knows? Surprise us. Hard to condemn a power play that we haven't seen yet. So I'll remain open minded.
That's a terrific film, incidentally.
I've never seen it.
Oh, go out and see it. The performances from Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon are exceptional.
I like the Johnny Cash and the Bob Dylan movie myself.
Yeah,
it was quite good.
A Complete Unknown. I like that film as well. But that scene when they're all getting drunk at like on the high school stage, and Reese Witherspoon is just so pissed off and says, "Y'all can't walk no line." Let's hope Quinn is walking the line. He's fun to watch walk the line. It's the weekend. It's warm. You can have some beer. Make it a yellow dog. Make sure you can walk that line.
It's been an exciting week of like new beers to tell you about. So
it's the season.
It's been a fun yellow dog week. Go back and watch the previous episodes if you're wondering what we're talking about.
Very soon, you have Yellow Dog right here at the Wall Center.
Chased by Tail Pale Ale, 12 packs. So often the craft brews come in the 4-pack. Dainty, but it's summertime.
Dainty.
It's summertime. It's volume buys now, right?
Yeah.
So the 12 packs of Chase My Tail on special for the month of June. Look for it on sale at private and government liquor stores.
Situation to, we talked about yesterday, the Brock Nelson dominoes that the Minnesota Wild were hoping to bring Brock Nelson back to his home state, and that would have made Marco Rossi a little bit more tradable. Now that Brock Nelson has re-signed with the Avalanche, does Minnesota require a center back when they're moving Marco Rossi? Well, the flip side of this. So Nelson is back with the Colorado Avalanche. Play behind Nathan McKinnon. Down the middle. Frank Saravelli saying Colorado has some questions about Charlie Coyle's fit. You may remember the Avalanche acquired Charlie Coyle at the trade deadline, traded Casey Mittelstadt, who had fallen out of favor there. Coyle came in. He had 2 goals and 13 points in 9 games during the regular season, and then added just 1 goal, 1 point in 7 playoff games. He was 35 points on 17 goals between both franchises last year. He's on 1 more year at $5.25 million. He's got an 8-team no-trade clause right now, but that goes down to a 3-team no-trade clause on July 1st. The bottom line, has the Nelson re-signing made Charlie Coyle available or more available? And would that be a name to satisfy the Vancouver Canucks needs?
Oh, boy. 35
little light
season.
On points. Yeah. Now, he had scored better than that previous in his
year.
career.
60 just the previous year. So 2 years ago, 60.
And not a young guy anymore.
No.
He's played most of next year at 33.
And generally, you look at his career
big
average,
right shot centerman, though. And boy, Canucks could use a big right shot centerman.
he is a 45-point guy. Like, that's what he's been through his career. He got up as high as 60, but you look at his production throughout the course of his career, he's a 45-point center.
He may even be less than that right
now because he's of his age, yeah. So, again, that's I think the Canucks should be more ambitious than that. I really do. Again, are you not better off with Pius Suter than Charlie Coyle?
Yep, you may very well be. And look, everyone now is aware of the interest they have in Marco Rossi. But as we've been talking about all week or for some time here, that's all well and good, but you're going to have to outbid some teams to get to Marco Rossi. I mean, there is a long list of NHL teams that are looking for a second-line center. Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Winnipeg, Montreal, Utah, LA, like on and on it goes. And a lot of those teams have some really attractive assets. And some of them are in a spot with their team cycle that they may be willing to overpay. So you got to ask yourself, are we willing to match a price? Like if Utah puts number 4 in play, what does that equate to in a Vancouver Canucks counteroffer? Minnesota goes to Vancouver and says, look, Utah's offering 4th overall. Can you beat that for Marco Rossi? What does that even look like, Blake? I don't know. But these are the sort of questions that I think Rutherford and Alvin are going to have to answer if you're looking for this top 2 center on the trade market.
I hear what you're saying, and if it was a different profile of player, I would wholeheartedly agree and say that it is going to be an absolute bidding war. I don't know that it is for this player. He is literally the only 5'9" top 6 forward in the league. 5'9" top 6 center in the league. The only one.
Can I just
what?
We say top 6 center. You dress 4 centers. It's the top 2 center. I don't know how top 6 forward got equated to top 6 center at some point, but it's just factually wrong.
Well,
I hate it. Every time I hear it, my ears bleed.
You'd rather top 2 center?
Top 2 center, yeah.
Okay.
First line center, second line center, third line center, fourth line center. That's all centers you got.
It just means that they play in the top 6.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is...
You label it however you want. I'm not going to get hung up on it.
I am.
Okay. Yeah. It sounds
yes, he's the only 5'9" top 2 center in the league.
And a franchise like Philadelphia, a franchise, who else did you mention in there?
Pittsburgh, LA, Utah, Montreal, Winnipeg.
LA, and probably Winnipeg as well. Like that is going away from their tried and true formulas of success. And that is big, burly centerman.
Yep.
And I think more, and I'm not saying those teams don't ultimately put in bids, but are they going to be strong bids?
Well, but you're also, like, and we've talked about this too with the Canucks, you're also subject to the available pool. You may have an ideal prototype for what your second line center looks like.
Yeah.
But if that ideal prototype is not on the trade market and not on the free agency market, you have to ask yourself, okay, are we willing to come off our ideal prototype, or are we just sitting this out? I think in a lot of cases, and particularly this year with the cap going up so much, that you're going to have teams that are willing to move off of their ideal prototype to get the player.
See, I think it's more likely to manifest itself in the UFA class, though, than it is in the trade market. I think, guys, more teams are going to say, we're flush with cash. Why aren't we spending our way out of this problem rather than peeling off assets to solve this problem? So I think that bodes well for John Tavares. John Tavares is going to reap dividends.
John Tavares is signing a hometown discount deal with the Maple Leafs.
We'll see.
To stay in his jammies.
Saw some ink spilt the other day that maybe he's Montreal bound. Maybe
I am sure John Tavares' camp is going to try and create as much by way of suitors to make sure the Leafs pay as much as they can, or as much as Tavares hopes. But I think you have several players on this UFA market for whom there was a very limited market because the player only wants to play. in a few markets.
And that very well might be true. The flip side to that is John Tavares probably never thought he would be the belle of a UFA class ball again. And here
but is he
might stand.
Is he?
As a center, yes. As amongst centers,
Well, Duchesne.
I think he's more. I think he. Well, Bennett. Yes.
I think he's the number 3 after Duchesne.
I think he's above Duchesne.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Okay. But again, he's above Duchesne for whom?
Well, no, but it doesn't matter
2
for
or
whom.
3 markets, right? Not.
Yeah, 3.
And I'm not even sure Duchesne has. I mean, we'll see.
They're going to do.
But
okay.
if Duchesne signed in Dallas, or re-signed in Dallas, or signed in a market without taxes, or signed in a market that had a cup contending team, that would surprise no one.
But
right?
there's still enough distractions.
Matt Duchene's not signing in Seattle, is he? I guess that's a tax-free
You
market.
look at every
He's
offer
not
when
signing
you're
in
UMA.
Winnipeg, is he? You think so?
Probably not. I mean, it depends on the number. Depends on the number. If you get double the offer from Winnipeg, do you not look at it if you're Matt Duchene? I think you might.
Okay.
It's not like it's a bad team. The point being is Rossi is – you have to believe in Rossi. And I don't know that everybody believes in Rossi.
Okay.
I myself, despite all my talk about Rossi, I'm not convinced about Rossi either. I've said, is he the kind of guy that's going to lead you through the playoffs? I don't know, but the Canucks need a bunch of points before that.
Sure,
and he helps there.
Flip side, yes. Flip side, a 23-year-old, I guess he'll be 24 next year. A 24-year-old center, 2 NHL seasons, topped 20 goals both times. Improved his point total from 40 to 60 this past year, so a 3/4 of a point per game
and
player.
Most of them 5-on-5.
Most of them 5-on-5. A top 10 pick pedigree, and even look at his AHL seasons; they were exceptional as well.
Yeah.
So he has done nothing but score as a professional, outside of a 19-game 1-assist cameo in the 22-23 season.
Yeah.
But as a full-time NHLer, he has scored at a very good pace. As a full-time AHLer, he has scored at a very good pace. As a full-time OHLer, he scored at a very good pace. So he has given you no reason to disbelieve that he can be a scorer in the National Hockey League and help you in the regular season. The playoffs is an interesting secondary question, or at least it would be a secondary question for teams that are just hoping to get to the playoffs, and we know how the Canucks roll. It would be a more difficult calculation for a team like Dallas or Florida,
LA,
Vegas.
Yeah.
Well, I don't.
Yeah, LA wants another forward to help them over the top.
I was going to say LA's just got to get past Edmonton.
Yeah,
no matter how they do it.
And I don't think they're looking at Marco Rossi going, that's the guy to do it.
They have typically gone with the bigger centerman in LA, but new management there, right?
Yeah. As somebody pointed out in the chat here, like Bennett, if Bennett signs in Toronto, like Bennett's probably looking at Florida or Toronto.
Yep.
If Bennett signs in Toronto, all those automatic signings in Toronto are no longer, right?
That could affect the Tavares market.
Yeah.
No doubt. Do you think Bennett is more likely to sign if they win this year, or more likely to sign if they re-sign if they don't win?
That's a great question. Because you could say, okay, my job is really done here. I've done it back to back with them.
Right, exactly.
Or
now it's time to go get paid and maybe score some more goals. Or you can say, how am I leaving a 2-time defending Stanley Cup champion?
I'm part of history here.
We've got something going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The Panthers will make that push, right?
You can spin that both ways.
There hasn't been a 3-time in a row winner since. Are we going back to the Islanders?
Yeah.
So, we'll see. The Abbotsford Canucks, Game 5 tonight in Texas. The final game of this series in Austin, one way or the other. And, of course, if the baby Canucks win, they are off to the Calder Cup final, the championship series against the Charlotte Checkers. If they lose this game, Game 6 Sunday at Abbotsford Center, with another chance to eliminate the Texas Stars and advance.
A Canucks team with multiple chances to win a series.
Yeah, what could possibly
wrong?
go? Well, this one has 3 chances.
Yeah, that's right. You do get the extra, the
2
bonus. Yeah.
3 chances. Like this from Cody Severson of Canucks Army. Kirill Kudryavtsev might be that guy in Abbotsford right now. 5-on-5. The Abbotsford Canucks are up 12 goals to 2 in his time on the ice. When the game is tied, Abbotsford is up 7-2 with him on the ice. And when they're trailing by a goal or more, they're up 3-0 with him on the ice.
He's the comeback kid in and of himself.
And this is for, like, he's the youngest defenseman they're playing, right?
Yeah, he would be, yeah.
This is for a 21-year-old in his first AHL season. 6 points in the 13 playoff games for Kudryavtsev. Of course, got a cup of coffee, couple of games with the Vancouver Canucks towards the end of the season. 7th round pick in 2022, 208th overall, and is performing like this.
He's the left shot.
Awesome regular season and is doing it again in the postseason.
He's a left shot. Could he be a version, though, of like a Chris Tanev? Now, he's had more offense in his past than Tanev did.
Although that is not going to be his NHL calling card.
That's right, and it's even dried up in the AHL. He exploded on the scene the first 3 months of the season. He was putting all sorts of points in. For the most part, it's dried up, but it seems to have bolstered his defensive metrics. Mm-hmm. You wonder. 7th round pick, though, the fact that we're even talking, giving airspace on an almost weekly basis to a 7th round pick is
Blake,
incredible.
He got time on this program shortly after his draft year because he was there in the OHL with the Sioux. He was coming off a decent season coming over from Russia as a rookie OHLer when he got drafted. And then the next year he came back and he improved his point totals, but he was also getting plaudits from all over the OHL and particularly coaches about his defensive work. So, look, he has been an awesome development for the Vancouver Canucks and principally right now for the Abbotsford Canucks. Going forward, Elias Pettersson, DPD, and Kudryavtsev. Is there a redundancy there?
Well,
is that where you're making your trade?
I'll throw one more in. He's got the least value because he's youngest, but Sorminio too, right? So, like you might think that Sorminio either can replace one of those guys if you trade one of those guys, or do you trade Sorminio with the helium that he's got as being a World Junior?
Yeah, I'm not biting on it. I know he's a World Junior. I know he had a good junior career and played with an excellent Seattle team at one point. But there's no pro track record there. So I think you need to wait until you have a pro track record before you make a call that, Sawyer Minio is going to factor on your big club.
Is he
or
worth
have
anything
trade,
via
or
trade,
had
though?
trade. He's worth something, but I can't imagine a lot right now. But Kudryavtsev and DPD are, and we talked about it yesterday. Like you have the eyes of the NHL world on this series right now, right? Because the only other hockey that's going on of any kind of note is the Stanley Cup final. So you have pro scouts, you have pro scouting departments, you have front offices that are watching these AHL games right now. So it's an incredible opportunity for these players to make some fans around the league.
Do you want a Danila Klimovich?
Can I interest you in a Belarusian winger? And that's why Jonathan Lekramaki, struggling right now, is a little disappointing. He was a healthy scratch and needed a reset. We'll see if Manny puts him back in the lineup, but you have to think Klimovich plays after a goal like that, right? Can't take Danila out after he scores the game winner.
Well, they haven't had a lot of goals in this series. Like, they're up 3-1, but they haven't scored a ton. So I think
one game where they broke out with goals, and other than that,
So I think if you've scored goals in this series, you should probably get another look. Yeah.
Here's the other thing, and we've kicked this around a little bit, in terms of as Manny keeps winning down there, the decision on Adam Foote is getting more and more interesting, right? But also, the eyes of the hockey world are on these coaching staffs too.
That's the bigger issue.
You've got alternate governors, AGMs who run AHL franchises, who are watching the way Manny works this bench, who he's putting out and when, who he's taking in, who he's putting in the lineup, who he's taking out, systems, power plays, penalty kills, and they're writing their book, right? They're making their notes.
And Matt, where is this game being played tonight?
It's being played in Texas, Blake.
Texas.
There was some coaching news in Texas today.
Right.
Pete DeBoer is out as the head coach of the Dallas Stars. In fact, Mikey, did you bring it up? We got one sports betting site that has Manny Malhotra as the favorite to be the next Dallas Stars head coach.
I mean,
it'd be quite a rise 1 year after being a head coach in the AHL.
I mean, look at the other names.
But he's
there,
a very, very
Croft and Nelson.
I know.
And he goes to the top of the list.
I'm very stunned. I'm very, very surprised. But
he's a candidate for sure.
Look, he was a beloved player in NHL circles because he was a pro's pro.
Yeah.
Because he was that high draft pick that, lo and behold, he wasn't going to be an NHL scorer. Turned himself into a shutdown defensive specialist, matchup centerman who won all the faceoffs. I mean, there was a time where he was, kind of an NHL nomad. And he went, no, I'm going to turn myself into a valuable player. And he did. And as we know, the Canucks rewarded him handsomely. I remember that free agency and speaking to someone else around the NHL. And they said, yeah, I like what that new front office has done there in Vancouver. My one question would be, given that sort of term and money to Malhotra, I thought that was a little rich for a non-scoring forward. And then, as we all know, Manny became an indispensable part on the defensive side of that team. So, yeah, I think Manny's future is bright. I would be surprised if somebody poached him in the here and now. But I agree with John Shannon. We've had many guests who have said this. It's a matter of when, not if.
And we'll get Marek to weigh in on the coaching vacancies as well and what Dallas will need to do. But to me, it's not so much that the story is not, why isn't it Manny this year? Is how much longer will you have Manny as an option for yourself?
Yeah,
is the bigger issue.
But that could very well have fed into why not Manny this year.
Yeah, they're intertwined to some degree.
For sure.
But, I mean, which is why I asked you yesterday, what's the leash like on Adam Foote?
Yeah.
If you have, let's say you survived the summer with Manny Malhotra still in your back pocket.
And he is under contract for next season, and there's a club option. I mean,
he's an NHL job to be usurped.
Yeah.
But if he survives in the Canucks quiver, what's that leash like on Adam Foote? Mm-hmm. And really, I'm open to all sorts of options for Adam Foote. I'm open to seeing the Canucks have a good start. I think there's a world in which they are abysmal. I honestly have no idea what to expect this fall.
Speaking of Jeff Marek, he reports that Caleb Malhotra, Manny's son, who had been playing for the BCHL's Chilliwack franchise, is going back to Ontario, the Brantford Bulldogs of the OHL.
Yeah, I think that's...
I can understand why Abbotsford was attractive for Manny, given that Caleb was playing in Chilliwack, but I don't necessarily think Manny's going to go following Caleb every step along the journey to the NHL here. So
yeah, Brantford's made that official as well. So it's interesting that we sort of paired them together down Valley Way when he took the job, and now Caleb's leaving. Maybe he's a little less tied to being there himself. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, at some point, you got to let go.
You got to let the kid fly.
Yeah, at some point, yeah, exactly. Let's get to today's menu. It's brought to you by Greta, a fantastic spot for all the games home and away. But an even better spot if you're hosting a team-building event or a party. If you need a venue, summer sociable, check out Greta. The amazing street food menu, the inimitable arcade that encircles the bar, a game for everybody. It's downtown. We highly recommend to book your event. Go to gretabar.com, 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin. We'll talk to Jeff Marek here on Canucks Matters, on the change in Dallas today with Pete DeBoer and beyond. And we'll talk with Axel Schuster. And boy, is there a matter with Vancouver Whitecaps FC right now. Put out a statement yesterday. The traveling party back to Vancouver from Mexico City has been waylaid by a gastrointestinal matter. They are still sleuthing out the cause of all of this, but they had to cancel a training session. They're having a modified training session today.
And I can give you breaking news from that. It was a bigger group to start, and there was optimism, and several players have had to leave practice early.
Yeah. The bottom line is a decision has to be made on Sunday's game against the Seattle Sounders at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. kickoff BC Place. That's the schedule. Full disclosure, Axel joined us a little bit earlier, but the plan here is for the Whitecaps to monitor their guys over the course of today. They would not be able to play if it was today. They have, of course, a roster that's already stripped down of 9 international players away, plus those who are sick. So if they would have had to have played today, forget about it. The Sounders plan to train and then travel to Vancouver tomorrow. So a decision has to be made by tomorrow at the latest for when Seattle's going to get, I don't know, they get on a bus or a plane or a train. I don't know how they're traveling. But bottom line is Seattle has a departure time tomorrow, and the call has to be made before then.
Yeah.
And there are not a lot of great rescheduling options here either.
That's what I was going to say. Before you get excited and be like, oh, yeah, reschedule, then we have everybody back. Well, no, there's only so many spots, blank spots in the schedule. It'll probably be during another international window later on in the season in which you are probably missing a ton of players again as well.
Yep. Let's get to our Bet365 bets of the day. The segment proudly brought to you by Bet365. I took a future yesterday.
So did I.
Okay. I'm going to the CFL here. I think I'm on a hot one here.
Okay.
Well, the Calgary Stampeders have completely revamped their defense. Their head coach, Dave Dickinson, said earlier in the week they may have 12 new starters on defense when they line up tomorrow at McMahon against Hamilton. Now, going young and new in the CFL typically involves some growing pains. Does anybody remember, I forget if it was Wally's first or second season here in BC, when they went really young in the secondary with some inexperienced guys in a season opener against Hamilton and Danny Mac, and Danny Mac threw for like 500 and some yards and like 6 touchdowns and just completely roasted a very good BC Lions team, but a BC Lions team that was really green in the secondary with guys who didn't quite know their assignments. I wonder if you have a dynamic at play like that tomorrow. You know, defenses early in the season, there are a lot of defensive coordinators now in the CFL, Blake, that want no part of young guys. Like, they want established, veteran, know what they're looking at defensive backs so that you're not giving up those big plays. Boy, I can understand playing the long game if you're Dickinson and the Stamps. You were terrible last year, but facing a veteran QB like Bo Levi Mitchell, who should know how to exploit this, I'm taking the Tabbies -2, and I'm going over 53 points.
I'm looking at the NHL Stanley Cup Final. No Barkov or Tkachuk, or Reinhart on the score sheet last time out.
I thought you were going to say for tonight. I was like, whoa, what did I miss here?
No.
On the score sheet.
On the score sheet last time. One of those two guys, Reinhart or Barkov, scores tonight. Take your pick. They're both plus 210. Mm-hmm. I'll do my coin toss. I'll say it's Barkov.
Oh, I thought you were going to go with the BC boy.
Going with Barkov.
Okay.
Plus 210.
Want to get in on the action for the Stanley Cup playoffs at Bet365? They've got you. Game props, player props, totals, money line, bet series winner, Conn Smythe winner. Whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game. An official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 or older. Jeff Marek is next. Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center.
The BZ4X. Remember those 4 characters? BZ4X?
Yep, that works.
Well, they're all letters. There's no numbers.
No, 4 number.
BZ4X. Mm-hmm. Thanks.
That's right. Easiness.
That's why there's 2 of us here. 3 letters, 1 number.
BZ4X.
It's Friday, folks. It's been a week. Remember those 4 characters because that's the newest addition to the electric lineup for Toyota. One that started with the legendary Prius continues now with the BZ4X, and you have to drive it to believe it. Go to your local Pacific Toyota dealer, ask them for a test drive, and find out what we're talking about. It'll win you over. Stay in the HOV lane for life. Skip by every gas station for God knows how long. Ever. You can get up to $5,000 in rebate incentives. You can get financing on the LE all-wheel drive, 0.99% for 36 months. ShopToyota.ca.
Jeff Marek is the host of The Sheet here on the Nation Network, noon Pacific time. He joins us Fridays usually. How are you? He's in Buffalo at the Combine.
I'm in Buffalo at the scouting combine, making sure my phone works properly here. How you doing, guys? So my tastefully decorated hotel room here.
Is that the Hyatt? Where are you?
Yes, Hyatt.
Yes,
yeah.
it's always the Hyatt.
That looked like the Hyatt.
It's Hyatt in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Yes. Blake and I did a week of shows from the Hyatt in Buffalo at the draft once upon a time.
It's close.
It's the Hyatt. It's still here.
Yeah. Hey, this week it's come to light that the Canucks still have interest in Bowen Byram. Cranbrook's Bowen Byram of the Buffalo Sabres there in town. And, I think it's a bit of a surprise just because, you know, we thought after they did Marcus Pettersson, acquired him, and then saw the emergence of Victor Mancini, and then got Tom Wielander, the draft pick signed, and then Forbert this week, we thought, okay, looks pretty set on defense, but apparently still interested on Bowen Byram. And Blake yesterday was talking with Patrick Johnson about, would it be a decent plan to just go out, get Byram, get some Quinn Hughes insurance in case this is his final year, and just try and build the best defense core in the National Hockey League and hope goals come from defensemen transporting the puck efficiently? Well, what says he? What do you think?
I'm very much of the mind. Let me put it this way. Finish this sentence for me. You can never have enough blank.
Money.
Well, that too.
Okay.
Yes. Well, there's actually a few things, but for the purposes of team building, you can never have enough defensemen.
Yep.
Right, and you can never have enough options. Listen, the interest in Bo Byram goes back years, goes back to when he was a member of the Colorado Avalanche. So this should come as a surprise to nobody. From the Buffalo Sabres point of view, I mean, we wonder about JJ Peterka. We wonder about Bo Byram for a couple of reasons. One, I think if it gets there, he'll just kill them in arbitration. Two, there is a feeling in Buffalo that this blue line is too young. And this blue line needs more veteran defenders on it. And I think when you couple those things together, you say to yourself, okay, they're probably looking then to move Bo Byram somewhere. His name's been out there for a reason. And I think if I'm Vancouver, even though there has been concussion history before, been some injury history there before. I think you still have a look at just what you were talking about, Maddie, like having a look at some Quinn Hughes insurance and also getting a top 4 defender. That'll give you a number of options for the remainder of the season and probably, I give you the benefit of not having to rush anybody into service before they're ready for it. To me, this one makes a lot of sense. And it's not just, bring the local boy home story.
It's an expensive blue line if they were to go down this route because, as you've mentioned, they're going to have to pay him, and they've already got an $8 million guy in Hughes, effectively 7.2 in Roenick, and Pettersson's making 5.5. So, you add in a Byram at what, 6, 7, something like that, and it starts to get really expensive. Do you have a conscious picture in your mind of how he plays on the right side, on his offside?
I think he's equally adept at playing both. Right. I mean, this is a guy whose bailiwick is skating and moving the puck. I know when you play, I know the coaches are particularly sensitive, especially in the generation now with the forecheck being as quick as it is. If you're playing on your offside coming around the net, even that split second can make all the difference between an efficient first pass and a turnover right around your net. But I mean, I think we've seen Byram, adept at playing both sides here. I don't. When it comes to someone like him, I don't say, that's going to be an issue.
And for a guy
not
thinking
someone that
offense,
can skate like that.
And for a guy thinking offense too, we know, of course, coming off your offside is nice if you are at all offensive. So
sticks in the middle, right? And always in a shooter's position. Always in a shooter's position. Absolutely.
Elias Pettersson and Thatcher Demko for Bowen Byram and JJ.
There we go. Hockey's
Elias or Elias?
Elias Pettersson.
Oh boy.
Thatcher Demko.
Oh boy.
Bo Byram and JJ Peterka.
No, it's just Elias Pettersson for JJ Peterka and Bowen Byram.
What?
No, here's my.
You keep telling me that his value is so low.
Elias and Elias is actually the one I had jumped up. Elias and Elias for Peterka and Byram.
Oh boy. Yeah. Okay. And there's smoke around Demko too. Maybe they're looking to move, which I got to say is quite surprising because I thought they were committed to two goaltenders. Lankinen and Demko go forward, but Sheloffs is doing very well here in the AHL.
There's one team that I'm very curious about for goaltenders right now, and that's Utah. Like, we're wondering about Utah making big swings in the offseason with free agents and maybe trades, and maybe even with that 4th overall pick in the draft. They have 4 or 5 first rounders still not in the lineup. Will that make them more amenable to moving down, maybe even just trading the pick altogether? But I do know that Utah is looking to do something at the goaltending position. That would be the first name that would pop out to me of teams that are ready to take that next step and could be interested if Vancouver is going to go down the trade route with Thatcher Demko.
Yeah. Correction for myself. It was Elias and Elias for Norris and Byram. But I digress.
You go ahead and work that out.
Yeah. I already had
and
this
then
thought.
You can join the chat.
I was going to drop it earlier.
He's struggling today, Jeff.
I am. My brain is
heard that BZ4X read.
Not firing.
Listen, it's like I always say about myself with my talk radio shows. 3 days a week, it's the old Dan Carlin line. 3 days a week, I'm an excellent host. Problem is, I'm on 5.
What do you make of
bookend days are tough?
What do you make of these marketing snafus where star players are left out? It happens in a lot of the markets. Vancouver seems particularly sensitive to this. Is not the first time we've said, "Hey, so and so's not on the poster." Does that mean they're being traded? No Demko, no Pettersson on the season ticket poster that was just released, and guys like Kiefer Sherwood are. Do you make anything of it?
I don't know. Sometimes it is sometimes I've heard I'll tell you what, I remember, who was it? It was Marty McSorley told me when he was doing color for radio for the San Jose Sharks, there was one player that Doug Wilson, I can't remember who the player was, that they were looking to trade. And so they said, they told Marty, no matter what happens with this player in this game, don't say his name. He could score. He could break Daryl Sittler's record of 10 points, and do not under any circumstance.
Sharks score again.
Say that. Look at San Jose. Look at that pass. So sometimes there's something deliberate about it. Sometimes it's the marriage of hockey ops saying to the marketing side of the group, we're not sure what's going to happen here. Let's just hedge our bets, because the worst thing you would have out there, you have the picture of someone's face on a ticket on December 10th and they get moved on July 27th. It makes things tricky. Sometimes there's something to it. Sometimes there isn't. I tend to not read too much into it, other than maybe they're just covering their bases here just in case.
Yeah. Well, we know for sure that Pete DeBoer will not be coaching the Dallas Stars. The announcement comes down this morning, and you say this goes deeper. You were telling us this goes deeper than just pulling Ottinger in Game 5 and what he said.
Just that. No, it's not just that. I don't think that. Put it this way, I don't think that Jim Nill is that frivolous about how he runs the Dallas Stars. I don't think Jim Nill would say, "Oh, everything was fine with Peter DeBoer here," and then he pulled that stunt with the goaltender. Well, we won't stand for that here in Dallas. I don't think that Nill is that frivolous. This is like, put it this way. Even though getting to the conference final is a major achievement, it's not a major achievement for the Dallas Stars anymore. And it's not a major achievement for Tom Ghilardi. Like, they're at the, how should I phrase this? They're at the, you look at the last two Stanley Cup champions, right? The Florida Panthers and the Vegas Golden Knights. That's where they're at. They're at the ruthless stage right now, where Western Conference Championship is not enough. The goal is Stanley Cup. This is, as I've said before, they are now entering the ruthless stage of their Stanley Cup pursuit, right? This is the Florida Panthers trade Jonathan Huberdeau off a 115-point season in order to take that next step, because that's what the manager believes is going to get him there. This is Kelly McCrimmon doing whatever it takes. No matter, like, remove emotions and feelings from all of this. We are doing what it's going to take to win the Stanley Cup. No one's here to collect up Christmas cards. We're here for one thing and one thing only. And if Jim Nill believes that Pete DeBoer is the guy to get him there, he would still be the coach. But I think the benefit of the doubt now is not being granted to anybody in this organization. I think this is going to be an absolutely wild summer with the Dallas Stars. In my blog this week, and we got picked up in a lot of places, I really do wonder about someone like I wonder about someone like Jason Robertson. Like, I think right now there's a lot of things that are on the table, things that normally you'd look at and say, how can Dallas even be entertaining this idea? But make no mistake about it. When you think about Dallas right now, think of one thing: ruthless pursuit of the Stanley Cup. That's it. Western Conference Final, not good enough. That's why you saw the decision made this morning on Pete DeBoer.
Who's going to be the next coach? Because there's been a lot of the coach shuffle already. Like, they're left now with the scraps in a lot of cases. So they're either going to be really innovative and hand all that expectation that you just talked about to somebody relatively inexperienced, or they go cagey old guy and Pete Laviolette.
Or they promote from within. Yeah.
Or they promote from within. Like, Neil Graham's done a great job. I threw this in the blog this week too. I think that they want Neil Graham on the bench in some capacity. I'm not saying that Neil Graham, for your viewers and listeners, he's the head coach of the Texas Stars.
We know him now because
you know him now.
Baby Nucks are facing him.
Abbotsford's handing it to him right now. So I think that Dallas understands that if they don't do something with Neil Graham now, there's enough noise around him that some other team will eventually. So I think they want to be proactive there. So I wouldn't be surprised if Neil Graham, in some capacity, again, I'm not saying head coach, but is on the bench in some capacity here with the Dallas Stars. Look, all the usual suspects' names have popped up. Peter Laviolette, to your point, that name has popped up. Once upon a time, Jim Nill was this close to hiring Gerard Gallant as his head coach, and that association stretches back to the Detroit Red Wings days. I wonder about Jay Woodcroft as well, who's still out there. Here's another name that I'll give you, and that's Dallas Eakins. And we've talked about him before.
Yeah.
He's someone that's quite well known, certainly to Tom Ghilardi. So I wonder if Dallas Eakins is in this. And then I think there's going to be some other names that pop up. Like the one that I just was having a conversation with someone about, considering there are so many Finnish players on this team, and we made a lot about the Finnish five and the starting lineup, and it was a great historic moment for the NHL. I wonder about someone like Jussi Ahokas, who's a Finnish-born coach who coaches the Kitchener Rangers of the OHL. Rich Peverly, who's with the Dallas Stars player development, he lives in Kitchener and would know and would have seen Jussi Ahokas for a couple of seasons do some really good work with the Kitchener Rangers team, and Ahokas is coach of the year, etc. There's one other name that. It's funny because I thought when I first heard it, I thought, okay, well, that won't have any consideration. But then I sort of called around and, it's like, well, this guy would get consideration here. And that's Gardner McDougall.
Huh.
Gardner McDougall, Moncton Wildcats, Gardner McDougall, UNB Reds. If you believe the things have been too tense on that bench, if you think that things have been too tight on that bench,
you think Pete DeBoer is guilty of that? He seems loosey goosey.
Is a very serious coach who demands a lot from his assistants and demands a lot from his players and demands a lot from everyone around him.
I need a vacation from Pete DeBoer, and I live in Vancouver on a podcast.
So if you want, I don't know, if you want to turn the temperature down a little bit, would Gardner McDougall's name be interesting for people out there?
I'm just glad you didn't name check Manny Malhotra, because we're sitting here wondering, the longer the Abbotsford Canucks go,
I know.
Did Vancouver choose the wrong guy, or B, is someone going to come and poach Manny Malhotra from this organization?
I think there'll be a lot. Like, I think, does Mitch Love's name now sort of re-enter? Maybe even someone who was there as an assistant before, and Todd Nelson, who for the first time, doesn't make it to the Calder Cup championship here. And does Todd Nelson re-enter that mix? Yeah. So I think there's still a fair amount, to say nothing of the list of college coaches, the Pat Ferschweilers and the David Carls of the world that are very much out there. So I think there'll be still a laundry list here. And for Dallas, you don't have to name someone tomorrow. We're in June. Jim Nill has some time here.
We talked about this earlier in the week with Cam Robinson, but you wanted to get in on this too, and that is the exodus from the Western Hockey League, where the Victoria Royals have seen Cole Reshney, who will be a first-round pick this year, and Keaton Verhoff, who will be a first-round pick next year. Leave for the University of North Dakota. I don't know if it's done yet, but there's rumors about Jackson Smith, who will be a first-round pick this year, off to Penn State University, and now
not done yet. But yes,
and now Caden Lindstrom, the fourth overall pick last year to Columbus, missed most of this year with injury. Big forward with the Medicine Hat Tigers. He's going to Michigan State. Wow, that is a lot of talent, and a lot of high-end talent that is leaving this league.
You're leaving a name out there.
Oh, who?
Gavin McKenna, we're all wondering about.
Yeah, well, I haven't. I mean, I've seen rumors there, but the other stuff seems a little more real or done.
The other stuff, I think that McKenna is taking his time. The names that are the colleges that have been attached there are Michigan, Michigan State, and Penn State, but we'll see what happens there. Like I said, the OHL are losing players as well. Jack Ivankovic and Malcolm Spence, off to Michigan. Luke Misa ends up at Penn State. Like, there's no shortage. In the Western League, you just saw, Justin Poirier, he's gone. We wonder about Justin Carbonneau of Blainville, Boisbriand. Does he end up with Boston College or something like that? But I know it does seem a lot in the Western League, and it is. Make no mistake about it. I think there's a few things that are motivating players here to make this decision from all three leagues and not just the Western League. One, let's be blunt, it's the shiny new toy. That's the beginning. Oh, this is something new, because again, we don't know how this is all going to end up. And I had Dan McKenzie, the president of the CHL, on last week, and he said, look, this is year one of this new model. So we're not going to know what this is going to be consistently for a couple of years, and I think that's true. But there's a few reasons. One, facilities are a lot better. Resources, support, all of that. It is incredible. Like, how do you compete with what Michigan has? How do you compete with what Michigan State is putting together? And here's the other thing that I'm sure a lot of people in the CHL don't want to hear, but the reality is, you look at the elite level coaches in development circles in hockey, where are they? They're in college hockey, right? I was one of the people that thought Pat Ferschweiler was going to get the Philadelphia Flyers job, and make no mistake about it, he was in consideration. We all wondered about David Carl in Chicago, and he pulled out. The list of, the Brandon Naurato,
which is crazy,
Adam Nightingale in Michigan State, the level of coaching you get at college hockey right now has probably never been better. And you couple that with opportunity and resources and support and facilities.
But that's
And-
crazy,
and the-
Jeff, because like the junior hockey is always sold. We are the development path that is closest to the National Hockey League. And so if your coaches are being viewed as, not the top of the heap in terms of the next guys up to take NHL jobs, and your facilities are so lacking, and you are so right with regards to facilities in these Big Ten schools and elsewhere that can finance like they can.
100%.
I have been of the opinion that since all this started, I think junior hockey has completely underestimated the lure, the pull, the power of the NCAA. Like OHL governors were talking about expansion. The WHL's about talking about going into Chilliwack. I'm like, guys, your player pool's going to dilute. In what world are you expanding?
Well, it'll change. It'll become a U19 league, a pre-draft league.
But Blake, that is a lesser product commercially than what you are currently putting on the ice with 18, 19.
Hang on. One thing we all have to remember here is too, and this is why the Porter Martones and the Michael Misas aren't doing anything until after the draft. If you're a player that goes and gets drafted and signs an NHL contract right away, you're not going to college hockey. You can't. So this is like Jet Lutchenko last year with Guelph. He signs his Philadelphia Flyers contract. He can't go play college hockey anywhere. So there is Matthew Schaefer, Islanders draft Matthew Schaefer. They sign him right away, and if he's not playing on the Islanders next year, he's going back to Erie, right? So for those like really really top guys that are going to sign NHL contracts right away, but I do agree with the point. Like again, that's why Dan McKenzie was saying we're not sure how this is all going to play out. But you're starting to see a lot of OHL teams pull players away from the USHL. I put it this way. I do think there's a reason the CHL upped their import rule from 2 to 3.
Yeah,
to say the least.
Right,
but you're right though. If you skim the cream off the USHL, though, your talent pool isn't going down so much. If people start to bail on the USHL because the now tried and true path is pre-draft, you're in the CHL, post-draft, you're in NCAA, I think a lot of the guys that were previously staying with the Chicago Steel are now going to the CHL. At least that's what their hope is probably going to be, no?
You just saw Adam Valentini signing with Kitchener, Callum Croskery signing with the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. And we'll see what happens with the Europeans in the USHL. Cooper Dennis goes to Brantford. That's not one of those like, the Canadian kid's just going home. Like he's an American committed to the University of Michigan. He's going to play for the Bulldogs. So again, we don't know how. This is the first year of it. We don't know how this is. Eventually, it's going to settle into its groove, whatever it's going to be. We're just seeing the beginning of it now.
Fair enough. If I'm involved in any of the CHL leagues, I am very, very worried right now.
Oh, it's uncertain for sure.
Yeah. Okay. We're down to our Jeff Marek Easter egg.
Oh, jeez. Keep forgetting.
As always,
yeah.
You have Blake Price here to help you
My
along.
Lifeline.
25 Stanley Cup finals thus far this century. Yes, I'm including the year 2000. I know that's not technically in the century, so nobody put me on E's and O's. So 25 Conn Smythe trophies awarded.
Oh, jeez.
How many have goalies and defensemen accounted for? 25 Conn Smythe trophies. How many winners have been goalies or defensemen?
Goalies or defensemen?
I mean, I'm not going to get the exact number. I would just off the top of my head, I would guess 8.
I would go even lower than that. I would say 6. No, hang on. No, I'll go 7.
He Price has righted me.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
I did too.
that's crazy. I'll go 7.
I would have been right there with you guys.
Vasilevsky just popped into my head like, oh yeah, him too.
I would have been right there with you guys because I was driving in today going, okay, Conn Smythe candidates, defensemen, goalies. Maybe Bobrovsky? Maybe Evan Bouchard from this series? Like, I'm not even sure they're really candidates, right? I was looking at the Bet365 odds, and it's going to be one of the forwards.
Better for Florida,
right.
97 or 29 for Edmonton.
And so I started thinking to myself, God, like defensemen, goalies, are they getting short shrift? No. Almost half, 12.
Really?
6 goalies, 6 defensemen since the year 2000. Stevens, Lidstrom, Niedermeyer, Keith, Hedman, McCarr.
yeah, Keith.
Roy.
Keith should have had 2, by the way. I thought he was 2010.
I think you're right.
Player on the ice. He's best player on the ice.
Roy, Giguère, Ward, Thomas, Quick, Vasilevsky.
It's good.
Mm-hmm.
So you beat me as I tried to
closest to without going over.
Closest to without going over.
Yeah.
Sadly, you were not close enough to win both showcases.
I really like that floral couch, though. I can't wait to have that in my living room.
By the way, if you haven't seen the Price is Right documentary with the guy, The Perfect Bid, the contestant who knew way too much, go seek it out.
Okay.
What's it called? The Perfect Bid?
It's called Perfect Bid, the contestant who knew too much. I believe it's on Prime.
One of the things that I love about coming on, here is I always get great documentary recommendations.
Yeah.
I'm just like every now and then, because that's it. Like I watch like hockey and I watch news and I watch documentaries.
Documentaries, that's pretty much with you. Those 3 categories.
You know what time? You know what time it is for me right now?
What?
Hotel coffee time.
Oh yes.
Hotel coffee.
Is that
better.
a creamer or is that the cup?
That's the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The pod.
Oh, the pod.
Yeah.
Okay.
Enjoy that.
Coffee pod. Thanks, boys. That's my reward. Thanks, you too.
Have fun at the Hyatt.
Sick Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. The Whitecaps play host to the Seattle Sounders at BC Place Sunday at 6 p.m., or at least
we think they do.
We think they do at this moment. Our next guest is going to help clarify that for us. Please, if you are interested in the game, whitecapsfc.com/tickets. Here's CEO and sporting director Axel Schuster, who tells us he's feeling fine, but his organization not so much. Axel, how are you?
Yeah, I'm feeling absolutely fine. Great seeing you guys. I don't know if I would copy that the organization is not feeling fine and good, but there are definitely some individuals in our organization that are not feeling fine.
Fair enough. You put out a statement yesterday, the club did, about gastrointestinal symptoms experienced by a significant number of Whitecaps FC players following the game in Mexico City against Cruz Azul on Sunday night. Best you can tell, Axel, what happened here?
Yeah, best I can tell, and we're still doing some research here, but best I can tell is that the following day after the game, a huge portion of the traveling party and more people than the 2 days after the game got really sick in a very bad way, so that they were not even able to move out of their bathrooms. So that definitely this party has picked up something in Mexico City, but also part of our analysis so far is that everyone, I would say with one exemption, everyone who wasn't on the plane back to Vancouver has not been impacted by it, including me, Pedro Vita, Andres Cubas, who played yesterday, and some other people who had different travel routes after the game in Mexico. So it feels like something happened after the game and is somehow related to maybe food or something that happened on the travel back to Vancouver.
And the travel of the Canadian national teamers who have a match tomorrow in Toronto, Jaden Nelson, Sam Adekubi, Ali Ahmed, what have you heard from them?
I think every one of them is good to go. And again, it feels like the people that were traveling back to Vancouver and have been on that charter plane have been those who got impacted the most, mainly. And there it was like almost 50% of the traveling party, so every second. And from all of those people who were not traveling with this, we have, I think, one person feeling some mild symptoms out of 12 people. So it's only, if you just go by the statistics, it feels like it was more related to the travel back than to anything else.
So are we thinking the post-game meal, or are we thinking a meal on the plane, Axel?
You know, there was no meal on the plane, but there were two options of post-game meal. Honestly, we don't want to speculate because I think it would be fair. And then we would, with speculations, we would also point at some service provider. We're still trying to find out and get more information. Don't know if we ever will find all the information that are needed. I can only go by just the pure analytics that we have done so far, and it's something that happened.
Right. So who was responsible for providing the post-game meal? Was that you guys as a club? Was that your opponent? Was that the stadium operations? Was that CONCACAF?
Yeah, the food got provided or was provided by a service provider from the stadium. Obviously, our crew and our nutritionist was involved in this, and we have also checked the food as good as we could. Who knows if it was this food, because this is already a little bit too much of speculations. We also have provided drinks and snacks and other things to the players and the traveling group after the game. We have also people that have been on the plane and haven't eaten the post-match meal at the stadium who have been impacted. So was it spread on the plane or? So there are so many reasons, and you have seen some reports, but there are also a lot of reports from fans that were traveling to Mexico City who had massive issues after coming back to Vancouver, and they have not been together with us at any time. So who knows?
Wow.
It is a city where the Canadian health authorities give you strict advices what you should do in the city and what you should not do, and there are a lot of risk factors on such a trip.
Well, Jesse Marsh noted Columbus got sick last year, and he doesn't think it's a coincidence. Axel, your response to that?
Yeah, I would be an easy and probably very cheap excuse now if I would say the same thing. Players who had no impact of food poisoning at all, like Peter Rieder and Anders Kubers, have not looked much better on the pitch than maybe some of the guys who have picked up symptoms after. So I would say, just going by the facts, it looks like we had some other reasons for our performance than food.
Before we put this portion of the chat to bed, like odds of this match happening on Sunday, more than 50-50?
I cannot speculate. We have a call with the league later. We try at this point, when this is recorded, we try to do a training session, a modified training session, and to see not only how many players are really able to do something on the pitch, also how much I would say physically they have left, how many minutes they could go. Are they very heavily impacted by that? Are they drained by it? And we will report honest numbers to the league after this, and then we will see what that means for the game on Sunday.
Wow. In some ways,
you were already missing 9 players to international duty, though.
It was
Axel. Can you even cobble together a starting 11, and how many players would be available to play right now if you had to play the game tonight?
Yeah, if we would have to play the game today, we wouldn't be able to play, and that was also pretty clear together with the league, and the league is a good partner in this, and they said, look, we also want to make sure that the game not only happens and is getting started, that you also can play it to the end, and that not your players are breaking down during the game. But obviously we have 2 more days to go, and today is really the first day where we have a few more players, also some of them who had symptoms, back on the pitch, and we will have to see how they feel after they did a few sprints, and then we will do and make the right decision together with the league.
That's the physical. How about the emotional? Would you rather get a match going to try to wash the memory of Cruz Azul from your brains, or is that secondary right now?
It's anyway a little bit of a weird situation, because a lot of the starters that have started in Cruz Azul or versus Cruz Azul are not here. And
right.
You have seen yesterday 2 playing a game, and they played really, really good. And congratulations to both. Great results for their countries in the World Cup qualifier. And there are also a lot of guys who were really hoping to play this game because they wanted to show how much they can give. We have to play a little bit more with our depth. And you can imagine that those guys who haven't played this amount of minutes were very eager to play on Sunday. So you can also take something away from guys who are fully excited about this game. If we can, and if you have the right amount of players and they're ready to go, then it's always better to play, because honestly, who knows when we have to play the game and what kind of situation. We just went through a rescheduling process with the league for the Portland game. And I know that the available dates are also not ideal, and most of them are also in other international windows. So
yeah.
If we somehow are ready for Sunday, then we better play.
Yeah. So when does the decision have to be made, Axel? I imagine Seattle travels tomorrow, so you need to let Seattle know prior to a certain time tomorrow. Is that the timeline we're looking at?
Yeah, Seattle is training tomorrow in Seattle and traveling after this training. So I think at that point, the final decision has to be made. As I said, we are in permanent conversations and contact.
Sure.
And we have agreed that we will speak after our session today, and we'll give an honest feedback how our guys are looking today.
What is your coach saying, Axel? What does Jesper want to do with this match?
You know, we spoke this morning, and he also said, look, it was a tricky game already before. It was a game for many reasons that is probably coming at the wrong time. After such a important game last week, that almost felt like the end of a season, what it obviously wasn't. Then with so many players being gone now, a few more players ill, it's probably not. It was never an easy game to play, and then it is what it is. So it's not that we went from an ideal scenario to a maybe mediocre scenario for Sunday. We are going from a not perfect scenario to a maybe a little bit less not perfect scenario. But also he is competitive enough to say, look, if there's a chance to play the game, we better play the game, because maybe at another point later in the season, it's hurting us even more.
9 players missing for international call-up as well, as we've talked about. 5 of those guys at least are going to stay gone because of the Gold Cup, the 3 Canadians, the 2 Americans as well. How do you get through the month of June? How do you get through early July even and keep up some of the momentum that you've had?
You know, I'm speaking lately a lot about what is the better scenario and what is the worst scenario. It was all the same with the final. I said it's still better to play a final, and even if you lose it this way, then not to play a final. Mm-hmm. And with the national team players, I would say it is exactly the same. It is better to have those players showing this great performances. 4 of them have not been national team players when they arrived at the club, and they have become national team players while playing for us. And maybe we wouldn't be in this position. Maybe we wouldn't be first in the league with a buffer of more or less 2 games if we would not have such good players. So on one side, we are very proud and happy that we are this platform that can help players to become national team players. We're very, very, very proud about the performance of our team so far. And those players played a massive role. So would it be now better to have less quality players with less of quality, and then not to have those releases at this time? I don't think so. And it's not possible. That's also our Canadian way. It is not possible for us to play with a lot of foreigners because our procedures to convert somebody from international to domestic are totally different than south of the border. So we need a very good and strong domestic player pool. And yes, that means that those players are going to the Gold Cup, and I only see that as a positive.
Is it reasonable, and I know you guys have been really reticent to give a timeline on Ryan Gauld's comeback, but these guys are gone for 5 weeks, let's say. Is it reasonable to expect that Ryan Gauld is back in the next 5 weeks?
I would say it is very reasonable to say that he will step with a foot on the pitch at some point in this 5 weeks. How impactful he can be in this next 5 weeks, we don't know. Mm-hmm. But I always say the Ryan is a little bit of a trump card. We are first in the Western Conference. We have a buffer of 2 games, and we are not even half through the season, and we get to this point soon, and then we have Ryan Gauld for most of the part of the second half of the season. So normally this should only make us better, and that should make everyone feeling good and confident that we will play a very good second half of the season, and that we will continue to compete, to get in other finals, and then to show that we have learned from this one final.
Obviously, transfer window, people want to know if anybody's coming in. More importantly, is there a chance? Can you guarantee that there are no exits in the summer?
In this business, you can never guarantee something like that, especially maybe less than in any of the other major sports, because we know that we're operating in a worldwide market and our players are playing on the international stage, and most of the other leagues are pausing right now and building the rosters for the next season. And they are looking at what players are doing in the national team even more than what they do in the league. And I wish them playing the best games of their life. And then it's you can never say no way or never that will happen. Not that it is a plan. We have not put anyone up for sale. We are not shopping a player. And also I've spoken with all our players, and everyone feels that something very big is happening this year here at the club, and everyone wants to be a part of this. But in this world, if the right club calls at the right time with the right offer, then you have to be prepared for it.
Well, we wish you the best of luck. First Sunday, if it goes forward, also through this spell, minus the international call-ups and beyond. Axel, it's been a tremendous year watching your club already. Hope you can keep it up. Thanks for the time.
Thank you for having me.
Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center turned game night into a game weekend. Book your stay here at the Wall. Call 604-331-1000. Ask for the exclusive Harrison Price rates on blackout date supply based on availability. And this next block brought to you by the Whistler Golf Club. The Arnold Palmer designed Whistler Golf Club, now open for the 2025 season, accepting online bookings for any time this year. Lock them in. Follow on social at Whistler Golf. Saw more bear activity yesterday. If you have a group of 12 or more, ask them about the Harrison Price midweek special. If you can play Tuesday through Thursday, going to take good care of you. whistlergolf.com/groups.
Have you seen that car ad? They're doing all these trick shots on the course, and then the car self-parks. I wondered if that was in the parking lot of Whistler Golf Club. It looks
there's a lot of filming this
with mountains in the background,
yeah.
I wonder.
I'm also seeing some of these golf influencers make their way to British Columbia for some of the views, vistas,
pretty good backdrop.
Backdrops. Yeah. Yes. Just want to start today with some audience shout-outs. Had a busy week of meeting audience members.
Oh, really?
Last week, I took my folks to Costco. They don't drive downtown anymore.
Oh,
so I have to take them to Costco. We're in line. Sand comes up. Sakaris leans in. Rebuild. So that's not happening. He goes, we traded the wrong guy. So shout out to San for watching, listening. Ryan in the pharmacy takes good care of our prescription needs.
Mm-hmm.
Met Ryan at a Canucks game a couple of years ago. He was with a bunch of kids, including his 1-year-old. And his 1-year-old is staring at me and staring at me and staring at me. And I go, boy, that's a curious little guy, huh? And he goes, I think he recognizes your voice. He goes, because when I'm driving around in the car with you, I have you guys on, and I think he's recognizing your voice.
Uncle Matty.
Well, to some degree. Anyway, shout out Ryan. And then job site Olivio. Played golf with him last week. Tells me he never misses an episode. If he can escape the job site for lunch, he tunes in. Oftentimes he's watching the replay on YouTube. So if the guys on his crew are wondering, where's Olivio? Why isn't he at the job site? He's watching Harrison Price. Thank you, Olivio.
Mm-hmm.
BC Lions list Marcus Moore and reserve Canadian offensive lineman Tyler Packer Anu Una as out for tomorrow's season opener against the Edmonton Elks. That leaves them with just the one reserve offensive lineman, Andrew Pearson. I sure hope they don't have injuries there.
Oh, gosh.
Broxton was not a big participant in training camp.
Time for the defensive lineman to...
I was going to say, this is the one where you sit there and go, okay, who's played offensive line before?
Yeah.
We may need to throw you in at right guard or left guard. This is, of course, the first game for Buck Pierce as a CFL and BC Lions head coach. This is the first game for Ryan Rigmaiden as a CFL and BC Lions general manager. They'll be looking to get off on the right foot. And, of course, this is the return of Nathan Rourke as unquestioned starter. There is no Vernon Adams here.
And training camped Nathan Rourke.
That's true.
Which
should make a huge difference.
You'd think.
Yeah. And we already have somebody atop the West. Saskatchewan beats Ottawa in the CFL opener last night. they announced 25,973. That crowd looked way smaller than 25,973. I was shocked at how many empty. This is Regina. This is the heartbeat of the league. This is the market where you wait.
I think
8 months.
I think the smoke and the fires had a big role. To play
did
there.
it?
Yeah. They've had they've had health warnings all week long in Regina.
I hope something was behind it, because that by no means looked like 26,000.
Yeah.
And, frankly, it's your first game. You got the overheads, the big wide shots, and it looked sparse. Staying with football, Aaron Rodgers has finally signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. OTAs are done. Aaron has no time for those.
No.
Wouldn't want to get on the field and,
Funny the timing of that, huh?
Yeah, no.
Oh, OTAs are over.
Same
Now
as
we'll
last
sign.
year. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, I'm not doing OTAs.
It rivals Roger Clemens flying in for his starts.
Yeah, a little bit. The difference is Clemens really only needed chemistry with a catcher. Aaron Rodgers needs, no one is looking at one of your 5 starting pitchers and saying you're the team leader. Interesting dynamic there with Russell Wilson, huh?
Yep.
I got to say, I cannot remember the last time you had 2 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks deep in their careers, both vying to reclaim past glory on the same roster. But I'm sure it will work out.
2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks?
Well, Rodgers for sure.
Yeah, is the other guy.
And that says nothing of the personalities, because, of course, we know how Russ rolls, and we know how A-Rod rolls as well. And here's the kicker. I'm not sure Mason Rudolph isn't their best quarterback right now.
Yeah. Oh, he's provided results for them. I mean, here's the thing with those two.
They have Mike Tomlin. He's supposed to be the strong leader that's going to keep all this together, right?
But when you have 2 guys that are borderline octogenarians as your quarterback, you probably should have insurance.
Probably right.
Like, those 2 guys could both be done by week 6.
Well, so the first time you turn it over to Russell, if Rodgers is not hurt, you lose Aaron Rodgers. You understand that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if Aaron Rodgers is struggling and you don't turn it over to Russell Wilson, you lose Russell Wilson, I would think as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this is a
could you see
combustible cocktail.
Could you see like week 7 with the Steelers at 1-5 or something like that, and Mike Tomlin at a podium going, Mason Rudolph gives us the best chance to win this week? I can absolutely see that.
I can also see, what's the over-under on one of those 2 old guys walking off the job in the first 6 weeks?
In Russell's case, I think he would request a trade. But, I mean, Aaron could just bounce.
Yeah.
Aaron could just ghost. Bye, NFL. I'm done.
Yeah, because if he starts the first 4 games, say, and he's 1-3 or 0-4, and Tomlin's showing signs that he wants to make a change, Aaron might just be like, no.
And, of course, they have DK Metcalf, too, right? We've talked a lot about drama on the show. Boy. Steelers could be a soap, and not something you have said about that franchise. I mean, the franchise of stability, of integrity, of... Anyway, it should be fun. Incredible basketball game last night. Boy, NBA Finals and Stanley Cup Final started with a bang. Just awesome games.
I've seen a lot of blowouts, and for it to come down to a buzzer beater, I mean,
Indiana
tremendous.
Again, just gangsters, a game they have no business winning. Steal game 1 with a 15-point comeback, much like they stole the first couple of games in that Knicks series. They stun OKC on their home floor. Tyrese Halliburton with a game-winning jumper that he really didn't want to take. Like, you watch him in his body language, he kind of double clutches it. He's looking like he wants to pass even when he gets up in the air. Throws it at the rim. Of course it goes down because Tyrese Halliburton's making every game-winning shot these days. And then we get to the stats. We did some of these after those incredible comebacks against the Knicks. It's only getting more crazy with Indiana. 5 15-point comebacks in this postseason, the most since they started tracking play-by-play in 1997. Blake, they're 5-3 when falling behind by 15 points in the playoffs.
That's ridiculous. I mean, and it's a little bit, it's the basketball version of, the 3-goal lead no longer being safe in the NHL.
It really is. NBA Finals teams were 0-182 when trailing by 9 points in the final 3 minutes. They're now 1-182. And then this from Tyler Smith, who covers the Pacers. The Pacers now have a win in every one with the every round with the following probability. They had a 0.3% win probability in a game in round 1. They won it. 2.1 in round 2. They won it. 4.1 in round 3. They won it. And then 2.6 last night. The odds of all 4 games going the Pacers' way, well, look at the decimal points there. So it's 6, 7 zeros before you get to a number. 1 in 1.5 million.
Wow.
So everyone on the Indiana Pacers, well, I mean, they're already millionaires, but they should buy lottery tickets.
Well, it's not luck, though. They have agency. They're doing it.
I suppose. Vancouver Canadians win 9-4 at Tri-City. Javon Ward on base all 5 times. He now leads the Northwest League with a .451 on-base percent. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Nearly half the time. Sees 3 games back in the division lead with 12 games remaining in the first half of the regular season. Jays number 2 prospect Trey Savage starts tonight against Angels number 7 prospect Ryan Johnson. He began this year in the big leagues as a reliever. Angels often rush their prospects. They realize, let's send this guy back down and make him a starter. They're home for a Tuesday 6-game set with Spokane, Friday nooner, Saturday Blue Jay Day featuring Pat Borders, Todd Stottlemyre, and take your pooch to the park on Tuesday. Tickets 604-872-5232 or CanadiansBaseball.com. Blake walks in today and says, look at this Canadian who's on a heater at the RBC Canadian Open. I'm like, oh, who is it? Thinking it's, a young up-and-coming Canadian, because oftentimes they get entry, sponsors exemptions into the Canadian Open. What's his name? Richard
Lee.
Okay. Born in Toronto.
Yeah.
Has played on the Asian tours. Father was a competitive golfer as well.
4 straight birdies on the back 9. And
9 under at one point on his rounds.
Yeah, so I mean he's going to be in good position.
Yeah,
will he be the low Canadian? As
we'll see.
We'll see. Pendra's not off the course yet, so
just early returns on TPC Toronto Osprey Valley doesn't look great on television. First of all, lots of mud. I mean, PGA Tour stops are often manicured. Lots of mud and lots of superfluous stuff in the background, maintenance sheds and equipment lying around. They haven't really dressed the set. First time there.
They've had a very wet spring, so maybe that's adding to it.
Looked muddy, looked a little bit, yeah. Bogey Juice poll question results from Thursday ask you, did the Canucks give up on Vasily Podkolzin too soon? Yes or no, people said.
People said, I can argue this both ways. I'll say they said yes.
Yes, they did. Percentage?
60.
64. Ron, considering how little they got from him, yes. Ken, no, he was no longer waiver exempt and had not proven that he would do it here. Great guy. I wish it worked out. With the Canucks, but there was no indication that it would happen. The league is riddled with guys who have had to move clubs to find a fit, and that's very fair, Ken.
Yep.
Xerxes, yes, if we're going to trade him, though, it should have never been to Edmonton. What he's doing now is exactly why you do not trade with a rival team. And Ken says, but he was also not making the NHL team and would not have cleared waivers. So, could see both sides.
But the question is, why wouldn't he have made the NHL team when he moves over to Edmonton, a Stanley Cup finalist, and plays every single, they never healthy scratched the guy 82 games with the Oilers.
And people are blaming Tocchet, and hey, fair enough. Tocchet had no use for him. But again, management has to own this. Coaches make suggestions when it comes to personnel. Management makes decisions. It is well within management's purview to say, no, we have a significant investment in this guy, a 10th overall pick. We think there's something there. We need you and your staff to keep working with him, Rick. Instead, they moved him on. I do not have an error or an omission.
Nothing I can see in the book.
Thank you for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social, X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time, weekdays, and, of course, support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Have a great weekend. Keep it local.